and welcome to our midday Saturday TEALITY check. And that's a play on words for reality, and that we will be talking about hot topics, news, and views with our spin on it, our perspective on hot topics, news, and views, rants, and raves with my homeboy Darren Coles as he joins us now. What's up, Darren?
What's happening, Cheryl?
Another Saturday, another Saturday.
Absolutely, man. I'm sitting here trying to make it happen. I'm trying to get
Man,
somebody squared away. We missing somebody.
well, we're going to leave it open for them to join. So whenever they can jump in, we just have an hour and that flies. So we're going to jump right in with the hot topics, news, and views.
I know that's
We got
right.
a
What we
couple of
start?
things to talk about. But first, we want to talk about right off the bat that March. We're in March, the beginning of March, and we spring forward with the time. So new things are happening. We're coming at the tail end of this pandemic, hopefully. Things are opening up. We're not out of the woods yet, but I'm so glad that we're seeing a light at the end of the tunnel. So March marks the beginning of a lot of new things. Spring, Women's Month, we celebrate powerful women in the past, present, and future. And that brings me to Crossroads Ministries naming Tamara Worrell Walker as our Woman of the Year for her dedication and commitment to God's Moments prayer podcast. All through 2020 pandemic, she was holding us down with prayer and supplication and fasting for people. Me, myself, she called together a band of prayer warriors, and I was on my deathbed with the coronavirus in 2020, this time of year, as a matter of fact. So we just want to honor her for 2020-21 as Woman of the Year for Crossroads Ministries. Good job, outstanding job. And we're going to launch our You Matter campaign, because even though there's a positive happening occurrence with the prayer of people coming through the pandemic, there were a lot of people that we lost, as a matter of fact, and a lot of young people of all ages that committed suicide from this isolation and separation from fellowship. Churches were closed down, and people think that churches don't matter and the spiritual aspect don't matter, but it matters. The spiritual side of us is the real side of us. So we pray for the families of people that were lost during the pandemic, and people that even yesterday we were celebrating the homegoing of a young 30-year-old who committed suicide. We just had much to pray for, and Evangelist Tamara held it down with prayer from 2020 to 2021 and continue to. So we honor her as Woman of the Year for Crossroads Ministries. And if you want to learn more about that, you can go to the website crossroads247.org. So
I tried to call and congratulate her,
okay.
but I haven't had a lot of luck, getting through. But I did text her.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll probably will reach out to her.
Yeah, definitely
that's
reach
a big
out.
thing.
Reach out. We honor and appreciate her for all of her efforts. And we have Carolyn on the line. Welcome, Carolyn. It's good that you were able to join us for TEALITY, our spin on reality. So we got a lot of hot topics, and feel free to jump in wherever. Okay. And Brother Darren, you had a lot to talk about. You wanted to talk about something on a lighter note with Mr. Potato Head. And where do we want to go with that?
Listen, as a kid, everybody knows Mr. Potato Head, right?
Yes.
Now, I wouldn't be the first to say that, if you're in any minority group, you're going to face a certain level of discrimination, right? Tell me what woman felt unempowered because Mr. Potato Head had Mr. in front of the potato. I mean, that's ignorant, right? And sometimes things are just going too far to try to live in this and quote unquote inclusive world that we live in, because some things are just too innocent to mess with, right?
I like that.
And
Too innocent to mess
yeah,
with.
it just
Yes.
doesn't. It just does not make any sense. And I don't know. It just was a huge disappointment to me that something that simple, somebody was sitting there thinking, you know what? It's not inclusive enough. We want to. What girl didn't feel included in society because of Mr. Taterhead? I
Right.
don't know one.
I don't know. I don't know.
Right. I saw that on the news last week where they're removing the Mr. Potato Head, Mrs. Potato Head, and they're just making it Potato Head for everything to be unisex and one gender. And I'm with you. There's an importance to identifying with your gender, and I'm not bashing people who have preferences. That's not it. But you hit the nail on the head when you talked about innocent, and that brings me to GQ's issue, the magazine issue. We wanted to talk about our favorite power couple.
Oh yeah,
You
yeah,
know
yeah. I
who
like
that
that couple right
is?
there.
Who's that?
Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
yeah. I
And
like that couple right there.
I used to love GQ magazine for men, in that it talked about men empowerment and men swag and how to dress. But they've moved to unisex and men in dresses. So I feel some type of way for GQ, but I really like this article with our people, Russell Wilson and Sierra. And I like what they wrote. The first thing Russell Wilson and Sierra do together in the morning, right around 6 a.m., after one kid or another has chosen to wake them up, is to pray. That was powerful.
Yeah.
The prayer is always the same, they say. They say, thank you for the day. They set their intentions, and they ask that the day be great. So this was a powerful article in GQ magazine. I don't promote it in general, but I love the coverage of Russell Wilson and Sierra in this issue. Beautiful couple, putting God first.
I told you last week, they and that brother saved, and Russell is a different type of guy. That's why he's catching a little bit of flack now, as he is doing the quote unquote, he's going through his dispute with the Seattle Seahawks, because they're trying to act like, because he's a Christian man, that he shouldn't have a take on anything. And quiet as kept, I don't really know sometimes who people think God is, right? They think God is this meek, humble spirit that agree with everybody, agree with everything, don't ever get mad, don't ever have a wrath. They don't know if they realize the same God that flooded the whole earth and killed everybody in it because they won't live it right? I don't know if they realize it was the same God that turned somebody into a pillar of salt.
Man, you better say so.
Say it again.
Exactly.
Better say so.
God has plenty of wrath, and I'm not saying that we're not supposed to be spiteful and vengeful, that we should be able to go to our sister and brother if we find fault with them and say that, and that is very true as well. But at the same time, people act like because you saved, you ain't supposed to get mad. Look, when they was gambling in the church, Jesus ain't go in there and said, please leave. He turned everything off, you know what I mean? He turned that sucker out,
That's right. And that's why, we started off on a note about Mr. Potato Head as though it was just only light and whimsical, but it says a lot to how we're thinking, and we don't allow people to have an opinion. We don't allow people to have a personality or a preference, and that's too extreme. There's such thing as too politically correct.
Listen, for 2,000 years, if you stood up to pee, you go in this bathroom right here. If you sit down to pee, you go in this bathroom over here.
Right.
And I don't need 4 bathrooms, I mean, some stuff just takes common sense. Even the other day, there was an article talking about, I forget what state it was, that finally made it illegal for transgender girls to run against biologically born women. It shouldn't have took a rocket scientist to do that, right?
Right.
If you were born a boy, your body has more testosterone in
Testosterone.
it. And even if you're taking hormone pills, you got more testosterone than the average woman. You
Right.
got more muscle mass than the average woman, and it's an unfair competitive advantage for you to be competing against women that were born naturally women, right?
Right.
And then you got you saw that transgendered woman killed that woman in the MMA.
Right.
So you don't want a man beating a woman, but if a man put a wig on,
Right. Right. There was an actual
change
incident
his name
where
from Dave to Dana, he
right.
can beat the crap out of it. Don't
Right.
nobody care.
He
Like, come on,
busted the lady's skull open.
man,
He
it's crazy.
and I mean it is, and we can use the term transgender, but there are biological essences that we cannot alter. They're just a part of being male or female.
Listen, I had a girl get mad at me one time because I was like, man, I held a door for her. She, one of them girls want to look like a dude. I like, man, listen, say what you want to say. I'm not calling no girl, no dude. I'm not gonna treat you like you a dude. I'm gonna treat you like you a woman, and whatever you want to do, you can do the rest on your own. I ain't even hating on you for how you live, but I'm not gonna. My intelligence won't let me act like a woman ain't a woman.
Right.
Okay. I told when it was snowing and icing, where all these what's the politically correct word for them?
I don't know.
The stud women, right? You need to be out there shoveling snow and getting ice up with me.
Right.
Now, you can't be a girl on that day and decide that you need a dude to come clean your car off. You need to be out here cleaning cars off with the fellas out here in the parking lot if it's like that.
Right.
And
we're not bashing LGBTQ.
I'm not bashing
However,
at all.
no, that's what I said. We are not at all, but we are simply being alert and aware of the discrepancies of how we want titles, but not the accountability in some instances. We want the title, we want the exterior looks, but when it comes to the accountability of you saying that you are a male, but you don't have all the attributes, and it's not of any fault of your own. It's the law of nature.
Well, you know what? Can I chime in
Yeah,
there?
sure.
Because we are God's people. We love people, so it's not about that. And we're not bashing. But I did a talk on once about a binary group here in Maryland, and one day you can wake up that you say I'm going to be a girl, and tomorrow you go to sleep. Next day you wake up and you say I'm going to be a boy. But I know people who've been a woman who was fired from her job within the last 2 months, a manager, because she did not correctly. She had been told the young man identified as a woman, but he wanted to be called they.
Oh yeah, the other pronouns.
Yeah, pronouns, and they were fired because he was offended, and I said, well, what is this world? What are we doing? If that's who you want to be, I'm not knocking it, but a woman who had been with the company for 20 plus years.
Yes, I read about that.
It's like they expect you to act like all of your intelligence just walked out the door, and that if you are a dude, I'm not supposed to act like I see a dude. I'm supposed to act like I see a no. I'm not doing all that, right? I will acknowledge that everybody has the right to live how they want to live. I will acknowledge that I cannot relate to feeling like there's a woman inside of me and I want to live like that. But at the same time, you're not, okay? And so I'm not going to I can't act like somebody is not who they are. And but at the same time, if I meet someone, I'm gonna show you all the respect you deserve to have. I'm not cussing nobody. I don't feel like you should not get jobs because of how you choose to live. I don't feel like none of those things are happening. But to act like the rest of society is supposed to act like they don't see that Bruce Jenner, for instance, ain't, so I'm supposed to act like he ain't Bruce no more. I'm supposed to act like as a 40 or soon to be 49-year-old man, I ain't see him in the Olympics when I was a kid on the Wheaties box as Bruce.
Now, and also an important point, Bruce Jenner won Woman of the Year because he got breast implants, but he publicly announced that he would keep his penis. So he would keep his
Really?
penis, but still be woman of the year. So it's dichotomies like that. It's
That's it.
dichotomies like that that are, like I say, you want the title, you want
Right.
the respect and the accolades, but you don't want the accountability for the essences of being of who you were created. So it's nothing about being mad. It's about, like Darren said, about sometimes common sense about what we see in front of us and what actually is. And to compare that sometimes with the struggle of, blacks and African Americans, it's apples and oranges. It's not even the same
Yeah.
scenario. It's not
I'm
the
just
same
sitting here
thing.
like, you see it all the time. People in the LGBTQ community always want to say, well, black people should understand your plight. You know what? I don't. I understand it from the sense of, listen, I got gay family members, for crying out loud. So I'm not a person, I don't love them no less because they're gay. You understand what I'm saying? At the same time, ain't none of them ain't none of them asking me to call them the other gender.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? I
Yes.
don't believe you shouldn't get a job and all that stuff. I don't really care about a whole lot of it because it don't affect me. Do you understand what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, I mean, what are we really trying to do? So if you just want to forcefully make people accept you, or go ahead on, put your resume out there. It's like I had somebody say something to me one day, and you couldn't even tell he was gay. So he hollered discrimination because what you want to do. I was making a point about Michael Sam, right?
Who's Michael
You
Who
do you
is
know who
Michael
Michael Sam?
Sam?
So
No.
Michael Sam was the first player to be drafted into the NFL openly
Oh,
gay.
and then he announced his fiance, and they kissed
Yeah,
publicly, and
kiss publicly, right?
uh-huh.
And I said to this person having this conversation that I didn't feel sorry for him. He lost everything. They said, "Man, why are you so insensitive? You gay bashing? You blah 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 blah." I said, "I'm not gay bashing." I said, "Let me ask you this: You got a job?" They said, "Yeah, I got a job." When you filled the application out,
Ooh, bingo.
did it ask you were you gay or straight? Did it ask you that? They said no. I said, okay, so let's backtrack a little bit. Michael Sam should have been drafted in the NFL in the first round. I'm going to openly admit that, right?
Yes.
But we're coming into an industry dominated by men.
Hmm.
Now, we can agree, I believe, that if you got 32 teams, 53 men on every team, somebody's gay besides Michael Sam.
Exactly.
But there's a reason that they write the book after they in their careers. Now watch this. If the goal is to just be able to play football and get treated like everybody else, why did he have to really go on Ellen DeGeneres and Oprah and let them convince him he should be the first openly gay man to get drafted? He didn't care about it messing with his draft stock. Now, if you look at college football, most people openly acknowledge, I don't care if you look at Fox Sports 1, ESPN, or whatever, that the Southeastern Conference in football, SEC, is the toughest football conference in the country. This dude won co-defensive player of the year in the toughest football conference in the United States. He would have easily been a top 10 pick if he shut his mouth and played football. Who asked him who he went home to at nighttime? Nobody.
Right.
But you was more concerned with being able to listen to Ellen DeGeneres, get on TV,
Hmm.
and so you want to force people that know all them old white men that's billionaires won't gonna accept that mess. They won't gonna want the publicity. They won't gonna want to be asked every time they went on an interview about Michael Sam. So guess what? They said, you don't want to touch it. A dude that should have been drafted in the first round, you had to make a team draft him, and he never made a roster and never got a chance to play. And all he had to do
And
was
that
shut his
brings
mouth
you
and play
back to
football.
common sense.
Common sense.
Common sense.
Hmm.
They
And
give $1 million.
people allow themselves to be used as pawns for an agenda for other people. And
Yeah.
that's what you have to be careful about. Don't allow yourself to be used as a pawn for some sidebar agenda. Stick with the point. And like you said, I don't feel sorry for him at all as well.
And think about it,
What did kissing somebody in public
live on
have to
TV.
do live on TV have to do with your football career?
That's right.
Absolutely nothing.
It had nothing to do with it. And you know what? It's like this too. Think about it. We all black on this panel, right? I can say African American, but we black. I just roll like that, right? Now watch this, right? When we at work,
What's
we
up,
can't.
Billy? Thanks
Hey,
for
How you doing?
joining
how you
us.
doing, Phil?
Yeah.
Yeah. When we at work, we can't talk and act like we do when we're at home among ourselves. We have to talk like we're in a work environment, right?
Right. Right.
Okay. What do we look like being at work in a corporate atmosphere, talking about, using a whole bunch of slang, using a whole bunch of jargon that we use just kicking the woolly bobo at home, right? So to speak. We can't talk like that at work. We have to act like we're at work. We have to act and talk professionally so we can be respected at work, right? Okay, I don't take my wife to New York Life. I ain't walking around if it's a gay person inside the building, I don't know if they're gay or not. But at the same time, I ain't pushing my marriage down nobody's throat. I'm not going out of my way for a person to accept her, the relationship, and doing a whole bunch of stuff to bring attention to myself. I just go and act on my daily life.
Right.
What did it gain him to go out and do all the stuff that Ellen and them had him do, be on all them television shows, when your goal was to be in the NFL? All the stuff they nitpicked him about was just a reason to nitpick him because he came out openly gay. This is the God honest truth. If he would have never said anything, whatever they want to nitpick him about, because he was defensive player of the year in that conference, they would have charted him up and coached him up in the league. They would have drafted him in the first round, and you would have never heard anything about it. And
Facts,
at some
100,
point,
100
you
facts.
gotta have some self accountability about some of this
Right,
stuff.
right. And common sense. Common
Yeah.
sense. Billy, you want to chime in? You know about that player, right?
Yeah, I had heard of him. But my thinking is he didn't think before he act. You know,
Absolutely.
if he kept his mouth shut and just went ahead and got drafted
Right.
and played for a few years, I mean, if it's that important to you to let everybody know what your sexuality is, because I don't think it's nobody's business. I don't
Right.
want to know.
Right.
I really don't want to know about anybody else's sexuality except my wife's because that's
That's right.
important to me.
I know
Okay?
that's right.
But everybody else, I don't really care. So, but if he felt like it was that important to him, that's on him.
But
And
he's
I
complaining
choose,
now. He complains now. He gets
yeah,
upset
but
because he says he don't have a career, right? And you know what?
whose fault is that?
It's his. That's my
It's
point.
his fault. Thank you. And I don't feel sorry for him.
Yeah, I don't feel
I,
sorry
I,
for him at all. And all he had to do was play football. I mean,
mhm.
listen, think about it like this. There's a lot of players in the NFL that support the LGBTQ community. That go
Right.
to the pride parades and all that, donate money to the cause. All you had to do was be active in your community. Guess what you need to be active? You need some money so you can do the
Mhm.
stuff you need. Guess what? Now you ain't got no money. You can't do anything because you made an ignorant choice. And guess what? Have you ever looked to see what them top 10 players get paid? Listen, usually when Robert Griffin, he was the second pick of the NFL draft.
RG3.
RG3. He had a $25 million 4-year, 5-year deal with the 50, had a 5-year option, 25 million all guaranteed. So that means no matter what happened in DC, they had to stroke a $25 million check to Robert Griffin III, right? Usually
Right.
it goes down the closer you get to 10. So let's just say if Robert Griffin got 25 million as number 2, he probably get guaranteed 15 million at 10, right?
Right.
$15 million just to sign your name on the line that you can't lose is a lot of money.
Yeah,
Yes,
it
it
That's
is.
is.
life changing money. Even if the career didn't work, I'm 15 million in, and you can do anything you want to do when you got money, right?
Right.
Come on, man. And people act like they ain't black. See, that's my thing. Black people can't do what their white friends do. I
No, you
learned
cannot.
this when I was a kid. I understand as a black
Well, it
man.
took me longer to learn it.
Listen, it's not even a racial statement. I have listen. Really, I ain't gonna say I got white friends. Everybody, but I've never had a problem having friends in any culture, right? But as a kid, I understood I could not do what my white friends can do.
Yeah.
Okay, as a black person in the United States, when you get to the point where you believe you can do what white people do and and get treated the same, you're a fool. That's why OJ went to jail. OJ thought he was white. OJ forgot he was black. Okay,
He still thinks that.
that's right. And you know what? He
And
he
he's
he
still
thought
paying the cost.
and he's
He
paying the
is still
cost.
paying the cost.
And check this out. The brother spent what 15 years in the penitentiary. And if he was a white man, he would have never seen a day in jail because they would
Right.
have hollered that it was his lawyer should have hollered that it was double jeopardy. But what they did was he committed, and this is how stupid it is. He stole his own
Own
stuff back,
Property.
his
right?
own stuff. Right.
And then they locked him up for it. But Cheryl, they gave him his stuff back while he was in jail, which means they acknowledged it was his stuff and left him in jail all that time. Now watch this. A good lawyer could always argue the only reason he's in jail is because of Nicole Simpson. And because you regret letting him go, you're trying to punish him for murder with this stupid charge right here. But
Right.
who was your lawyer? Right? See, the problem is the fact that when white people do stuff, they kill black people. We just supposed to get over it. Okay, whether it's Emmett Till or whether it's George Floyd, we did. Oh man, this long time. Oh, why you guys keep chiming about that? One white woman got killed by a black man. Black
And they
people
call that the crime of the century.
Man, come
Yeah.
on, man. And listen, black people do not have a history of killing white people. This is just the
No.
this is just the
We
truth.
kill
So
black people.
yeah. So one black man, quote unquote, got away with killing a white woman and her I don't know who that dude was. I guess it was her boyfriend, right? And you can't get over that. You can't get over it, right? We still talking about it in 2021. And we expected to get over 150 some years of slavery, 100 years of segregation and Jim Crow, 100 years of redlining, 100 years of getting mistreated at work, 100, all these years of sitting in back of buses and being treated second class, can't get loans like as equal, even when we qualify the same. All of these things that come to the black community, we supposed to get over all this stuff. And you telling me that one black man, quote unquote, got away with doing something wrong to somebody white.
And he was not found guilty. He was found innocent.
And was found innocent, right? Yet, just in 2020, a white cop, quote unquote, walks into the wrong apartment and kills a brother
And
sitting at
then
home eating
while
ice
he's
cream.
eating ice cream.
And she don't get but 10 years and get hugged by the judge and I mean, yeah.
By the brother of the victim.
Yeah.
She gets hugged by the brother of the victim, saying that she should not go to jail.
Yeah, and the mother was upset though. I'm telling you right now. But I'm like this. When people don't want to acknowledge the same, and then the sad part about it on all these media outlets is, which is a reason I'm glad this one exists, is the people that they try to push to represent us, they just hop and bob and what was Samuel L. Jackson on Django? What was his name?
Oh yeah.
They
You know that he represented the HNIC, so he played that part excellently. He played that part.
When you look at Candace Owens, they need to be ashamed of themselves. And you know what's so hypocritical about Candace Owens? She act like she don't know what it's like to go to experience anything. Says she never experienced discrimination. If you Google Candace Owens, right? Her family sued, I want to say it was a school district in New Jersey for racial discrimination. And they got a lot of money out of it, right? But yet you come on television talking about acting like you don't know what discrimination feel like. Well, the problem is the fact that she probably, you got some black people that don't feel connected to the black community and feel rejected by the white, but you make a financial or money decision, right? And so when somebody like Candace Owens, people like her and Herschel Walker and Herman Cain and them idiots, you know what? It's hard for me to feel sorry for them, man. Even when Herman Cain died, you don't want to see nobody die of COVID, right? But I don't feel sorry for no Negro walking around here with Donald Trump because he ain't take this virus serious. You sitting there with all them people jumping up and down and bopping all up and down, don't have no mask on, ain't taking no precautions, and you forgot you was black. And guess what? Donald Trump Didn't even say nothing about the dude. All that money he done put in Donald Trump campaign, all the getting out and supporting him. He didn't even go to the man funeral. I'm just saying. At some point, we got to learn that we're better together than apart, and we have to stick together. And we have to understand that if we don't stick together and fix ourselves, that no one is going to do it for us. And I don't. Sadly, I don't know if it'll ever get there. We don't have a leader in the Black community anymore.
But that's often said about we don't have a leader and we don't stick together. But people don't understand that discrimination and segregation is codified. It's written in state laws, it's written in federal laws, where that even if we had a desire to put our money together to buy property, there are laws and codes that that banks will be penalized if they finance our homes and our properties. Redlining, we think it's just a line drawn around our neighborhood, but no, there are federal laws in place on the books that says a certain amount of percentages when you build these large infrastructures for, let's say, urban housing or to help one group or another. It's codified that whites be separate from Black people by matter of law, where that banks, savings and loans, credit unions are penalized if they don't keep the Black neighborhoods separate from the white neighborhoods in everything that we do. So we think that our post office, like for Boston, it took me almost 5 years to figure out what was literally Boston proper, because in the postal system and the coding, people are even afraid to use the word "I live in Boston," because the immediate response for if you tell somebody you live in Boston, I don't understand Boston. What part? It's like you're forced to say, I live in Roxbury, or I live in Dorchester, or I live in Mattapan, or I live in Cambridge. And people take pride in saying they're not satisfied until you say, I live in a white neighborhood or I live in a Black neighborhood. So if you say, I live in a Cambridge, people are, oh, how did you do that? Oh, that's hard to do. Or they look at you like, how did you get here? Or if you're white and you live in a Black neighborhood, there's, oh, aren't you afraid? Or how did that happen? Because it's literally in your postal box, where you cannot put Boston and a zip code. You got to put Boston white or Boston Black. And that's across the whole United States. Well, no matter what area of the United States, it's in the postal code, it's in the government code to keep Blacks separate from white.
Well, it's like they're here in Richmond now.
We think that it's a choice that we make to be separate. It's not just our choice. And if a certain amount of power is lended to a Black neighborhood, as you have seen leaders in the past, we don't have to go too far in history. If people lend a voice, they are punished or murdered. Malcolm X, Dr. King, Emmett Till was just a child. Medgar Evers. It doesn't matter. You will be killed when you meet these advocates or activists in their later years. They're very subdued.
I'm gonna tell you,
I met a member of the Black Panthers. It's not the same attitude, because they harass you with the CIA and the FBI, and they have stuff on you where that if you speak up or try to lead a people, you will be silenced, either with what you have, your goods taken away from you, or your life taken away from you. And that's a real thing.
Well, it's like they treated the civil rights leaders like what's a good all right. So you remember when you in Roots, right? When you saw the movie Roots, and when they started talking about what's the guy that was from Southampton, he killed all them white people. Nat Turner. All right. So when they killed Nat Turner, they cut his body up in different parts.
Yes.
And when they showed it to the slaves, is to say, this was gonna happen to you. It's like it's like they did the same thing to our leaders.
Yes.
So every Black leader has been assassinated, and every white person that was helping Black people been assassinated, right?
Yes.
So it's like no one wants that mantle anymore, right? And now everybody that's coming forth now that look like us is trying to stay so middle of the road, but then you can't get anything done because you're afraid to demand anything or anything of substance for the community you live in. And in some ways it's just a sad situation. Even when you look here in Richmond. So like when I grew up and you go get a letter in Richmond, I don't care where you live, to say Richmond, Virginia in the zip code, right? Now, just like you said about Boston, it says North Chesterfield, South Chesterfield, or if it's a Midlothian, Virginia, or say it would just say that, right? So if you see
Mhm.
somebody that live in Midlothian, Virginia, you know they got some money, right? You know where they come from. If you see them live in North Chesterfield, you know they in an urban black neighborhood, stuff like that, or borderline where they could be kind of depends on where they are, right? So you like you said, that is very true. Henrico, even in Henrico County, it used to always say Richmond. Now it's going to say Glen Allen, Virginia. It'll say Henrico, just regular Henrico, Virginia, but it
Yeah.
won't say Richmond because it don't want to be associated with the city.
Right, right.
Yeah, so you're right about that.
That's codified. That's in the code, government code, and people don't understand that it's not our choice.
And when they
We're
do it,
divided by the government.
they tell black people where we're doing it because, like, and I remember getting a letter at my house. They said I lived in Henrico, but they wanted to change the city name to Henrico, Virginia, instead of saying Richmond. They
Right,
said that the tax money was not going to Henrico, it was going to the city. So to help with making sure that the money went where it needed to go, that's why they wanted to do it. I don't believe that's what it was. It's just like you
right.
said it is. You know, they're just their way of being able to do the stuff they want to do. But I'm gonna shut up and give everybody else a chance to speak, Cheryl, because I can talk all day. I see Gloria and Vanessa's in the house and Angela's in the house. Hello,
Yeah,
ladies.
jump in, jump in. And Bill's in the house. But yeah, we understand a lot of things and we learn a little bit at a time, here a little, there a little. But the picture is bigger. I put it under the category of spiritual wickedness in high places. It's so beyond our comprehension that we got to pray. Without prayer, we have nothing against the wiles of the devil.
And I'm gonna tell you, it's like people get stupid. You know, the other day I'm at my office, right? And we were having a lunch because one of the building owners wanted to treat us to lunch because we were doing so well, right? So here at the job, you know, you have like a certain level of counsel that you can achieve, and that level it dictates, you know, the company will send you on a trip or something, right? So, so what happens is he comes out talking about being afraid to go on a trip because of all the stuff going on in DC, right? Okay, you're afraid to go on a trip because of all the stuff going on in DC. But for 4 years, when all that racial rhetoric was coming out of the president's mouth, he defended every word. He have no problem with none of it. So then you see the product of that happen on January the 6th, and now all of a sudden you want to be afraid to go up there. And you still don't feel like nothing is wrong with that doggone rubber flag that they be toting around. Um, and you trying to sit there and act like it's so much good behind it. It's not meant what people wanted to say it mean. It's like people think you're stupid. Um, and at the end, I can't tell you what it's like to be a son of the Confederate, but at some point, I don't know about nobody else. If I was being, let's just say I'm being silly. You know, I talk to you, Cheryl, all the time. If I'd be like, man, this is my homegirl Cheryl, this home, and you said to me, Darren, I don't like when you call me homegirl Cheryl. You
I
know,
said that.
no, I'm saying, but if you were to say
Oh,
that,
if I said that. Oh, okay.
and then I keep calling you my homegirl Cheryl, at that
Oh,
point
oh,
it becomes disrespectful now because I'm not respecting that you don't want me to call you that, right?
Right.
right.
So so in the same task of every time you see the rubber flag, there's
Flag.
nothing good going on as it pertains to black people. But you know, and it's like what is it? What does it take for people to understand or even care about how you feel, but they claim that they're not racist and stuff like this? Okay, if somebody's telling you and make them feel this way, it ain't you not doing nobody any favors by trying to act like they don't feel that way or that they shouldn't feel that way. It is what it is.
But tell us about when you had the conversation when they said the Confederate flag represents their heritage. So they didn't see why you were offended by it because it doesn't mean that they had something against you. That just meant that that was their heritage.
Listen, what heritage are we really trying to protect? I mean, listen, people will always try to get, they always want to be the smartest person in the room. Listen, you don't even need college for this. All of us went to high school, right? You went to high school, and everything about the Civil War was about slavery
Yes, it was.
in some way, shape, or form, right? Sometimes people will say something stupid and say, well, it wasn't about slavery, it's about property. Well, okay, you come back, slaves weren't considered people, they were considered property. So if you try to go back into your ancestry, and this is why I believe the stuff in Roots happened, but I don't believe the story Roots no more because Alex Haley said it was about his family and he researched it all the way back to them. You can't research it, Cheryl. I'm gonna tell you, I know for a fact because I tried to research mine after I saw it. If you go to ancestry.com, the furthest back is a black person is going to be able to find history about their family is about the mid 1880s. You're not going to find it before then because slaves were considered property. They were considered cattle. They did not have social security numbers or anything where they weren't part of any type of censuses or anything like that. So
Right.
there's no way the way that they sold us, separated mothers, fathers, and children and all that stuff, there's no way to trace you back truly to where you come from, right? You can only go back so far, right?
Well, that's true because Dr. Henry Louis Gates, when he does the ancestry check, generally it's all the way back to where the census started, or the people are listed as property. So you have a first name and an age, and they kind of piece it together that way. Or it goes back to some kind of European connection or international connection of some kind. But you're right, as far as American, because the the overtaking or the whatever, the overthrowing of the people in America started at a certain history. The European connection to America is limited, so it's only going to go back so far. So I totally agree with you in that
Now,
respect.
so when we're talking to the guy, right, and this is how ignorant people are. Do you know that the original Confederate flag that the Confederate States of America used didn't look like the rubber flag we know?
So how so you're talking about the Confederate flag with the X on it,
Yeah, the
or
one
you're
that you
talking
see,
about the original one with the 13 stars? Which
that's
one?
what I'm talking about. That original, the 13 stars were the United States for the 13 colonies, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
when the Confederate States of America broke off from the rest of the United States territories, they became their own country. That original flag does not look like the one that you see when you see the KKK in them coming. That flag you see that the KKK uses came when they started doing what they were doing. So when people say something stupid about the heritage and all that other stuff, and I told the guy, your family was fighting to keep me picking cotton and being a slave. He said, that's not true. I said, well, what were they fighting for?
There you
I
go.
said, if the South would have won, I would still be picking cotton and you'd have me bail over a tree somewhere with a whip, telling me to move and work from sun up to sundown. Okay. People want to act stupid like this stuff is just not true, right? It's like you can't sit here and claim to me that you're not racist, but every time a KKK person come, a skinhead come, you see that flag. When they were burning down black people houses in the 60s, you saw that flag. When they come down the street in 2021 and 2020, you see that flag. That flag does not represent anything good. That flag represents exactly what it represents, and the people that were fighting for the South, they were fighting for what the people are showing you it represents right now. And people need to stop acting like that's not the truth.
And I'm glad you put it that way because that is so true. Here in Maryland, in Beltsville, 15 years ago, They were burning flags and
Crosses.
crosses and things like that, and that flag would show up. But that's a very good way of putting it, Darren. I mean, really, but it represents what it is. That is
But I
a
want to hear from the other people, Cheryl. They kind of quiet. I want to hear from the Angela, Gloria, and Vanessa. I'm gonna stop
Oh,
talking.
they're shy, I guess.
But you gotta unmute yourself though.
Oh, so
Okay,
people
hello.
are trying to get in, and I gave them the wrong number. So let me
Yeah.
try to give a better number.
All right. You come on, Angela. You good? Come on in, girl.
Hello,
No,
everybody.
you talk. No, you talking good, and I'm listening.
Before
Nah.
I would agree with you guys are saying, but before I say it again, what is it KKK again?
What is the
So
KKK?
we have a teenager. Welcome to our teenager on the line,
Yeah.
and we welcome them. This is a learning experience. So can someone tell young Angela what is the KKK?
So the Ku Klux Klan was started when at the end of slavery they came to life. So I don't know if you've ever seen like on whether it's on an old movie and they're dressed in white with the white hoods with their eyes and got the eyes open.
She
Oh, I
does.
know.
Oh, you know
They
what
are
that
white.
They
is?
have a Muslim habit, only an eye show.
Yeah, they
Oh
are
yeah, I
a
know
white.
that.
Yeah, they're a white supremacist group, right? And so, and when the war ended, and um, they were trying to intimidate the freed slaves. And they were going around damaging all their properties, burning down everything every time they tried to get something going on. And all the way through the 60s in the South, there were a huge presence in the South of intimidation for black people. Now, guess what? They wearing those hoods because you can't see their face, and the people under the hoods are your local policemen and firefighters and judges and
Whoa.
people that's prominent in the community that know that they probably shouldn't be doing what they're doing, but their hate is they're doing what they're doing in hate, but covering themselves so you don't know what they're doing.
Again, I'm gonna double check. I heard it was. Is it true in white people under them that hurting black people? That's what I was taught. So I'm gonna double check that was true.
Well, they listen. They killed a lot of black people, but I mean, sometimes like if you have you ever seen the movie Malcolm X?
Yeah, my school teacher got.
All right, so you remember in the movie Malcolm X, the KKK drug his father out the house, and they burnt the house down and he shot him away, and then they got him, drug him out of his house the second time, and they killed him and chained him down on the train track. Do you
I
remember
don't
that?
remember all of that. I'm gonna have to
Wow,
watch that
I haven't
again.
watched that. I watched another movie, Broken. I forgot the name of it. Woke, I heard of Woken Parts and all that, but I haven't heard that movie yet.
Yeah, y'all, you need to go watch. You need to go watch Malcolm X with
I need to
Denzel
watch it
Washington.
again. I need to
Yeah,
watch it again. Yeah.
Yeah. So
But you know, as you see on the line, it's a lot of different perspectives, and we have young Angela who hasn't lived long enough to probably experience what we're talking about. But it's good to read books or watch relevant videos. So Angela, you might want to go back and watch that again, and the next call, feel free to ask a question. You
yeah,
know, we'll and just jump in. Feel free to jump in. So moving on to our next topic, rest in peace, Vernon Jordan, who just passed away, and our beloved Cicely Tyson. We're losing a lot of people, but that's life. We all have a season. But they made great contributions. And I'm still watching Cicely Tyson's movies and how she selected roles that only she could play because she had that strength and that confidence that we use now as historical information, like Jane Pittman. And I just saw Sounder. I'm thinking for the first time, but I probably saw it years and years ago that I don't remember. So, just iconic.
well, I watch Cicely Tyson. Like you say, I you know what I like about it. you see somebody like Tyler Perry, most of his movies, especially the good ones, he always made sure to cast her in some type of role that really displayed that power, right? And I mean, the woman worked all the way into her 90s, man. I mean, and I guess everybody's health can fail, but I mean, if you're gonna die, that's how you're supposed to die. Old
Right.
age,
Exactly.
around your family. We can make doing some positive things. So, like you say, um, I remember Jamie Foxx telling a story about how when he was doing Ray and he was throwing parties and Oprah um, basically put him in a room with like Sidney Poitier and a whole lot of black people that were iconic and basically telling him, listen, you're not just representing yourself, you representing us. And he was talking about how he cried because he just was taking so much for granted, and that he said that it wouldn't have done what it did if he didn't have that. So to say that at least they've always gone back and reached back to try to help some of the people coming up behind them. Because you could have easily taken a different approach. You could have took the Richard Pryor approach,
Right. Right. And did
which is not a.
anybody see the series on the Black church that's now on PBS? It's
Yeah,
airing this month. What did you think of that?
I thought it was very interesting. The way that they portrayed the churches, it really just opened my eyes to the history behind a lot of the black churches. You know,
Hmm. And that's presented by Dr. Henry Louis Gates as well.
yeah.
Uh, I learned a lot as well. I haven't seen the entire series. I think it's a 3-part series, or I
I hadn't
saw
seen it at all.
a portion of it. Um, and they interviewed people that we recognize in our current times, like Kirk Franklin, Bishop Jakes,
Hmm.
John Lennon, Jennifer Hudson, Oprah Winfrey. So I thought that was valuable, seeing how church related to people today, and not just from a historical perspective. When we talk about Black history, a lot of times it's about things about people who have died and gone on. But I like the fact that they have people that are living and successful, and say how the church was instrumental. It used to people used to not acknowledge the church input in their lives, like Little Richard and James Brown and all that. They had, Ray Charles. They had that church air, but didn't get a chance to acknowledge how the church actually played a role in their success in their life. So I really value. The only thing that was a little bit challenging to see, again, back to the LGBTQ, and it seems like you cannot get past some kind of input from on that in that regard on any kind of topic today. So they were talking about how the church possibly did not acknowledge the homosexuals, and I didn't see how that played a part, since the impetus of the church is to talk about the righteousness of God, or what God's will is. you know that kind of was interesting, thrown in
Well,
there.
that's what's gonna get people right there. See, because I'm like this, um, all these you got these pastors trying to be in the middle of the road right now.
Hmm.
Two things can be true at the same time. Okay, um, Christ loved everybody. The Bible speaks that God loves us all, but He doesn't love the things we do. The Father can't and don't put Himself in the midst of sin, right? So here's the truth. When they talk about Jesus, they be lying. It's like they I don't want to use the word lie.
Yeah.
They smudge the truth, right?
You're
So
saying some people smudge the truth in
they,
regards to
all right,
what?
this is so when you look at different people doing things, whether it's LGBTQ or whatever, they always use the argument, Jesus loved everybody. He talked to the murderers, he talked to the right? What is true? Okay. All right. Like the people that walk with him changed.
Mm,
You understand what I'm saying? So when you look at he met who did he meet first? Peter. He met Peter
Hmm.
and his brother first, right?
hmm
They were fishing. He said, I'm going to teach you to be fishers of men. Okay. They started walking with Jesus through the cut. As he kept going on his voyage, he met everybody else. Then he come across Levi. Levi's Matthew, right? Levi was the tax man. He was robbing everybody, taking their money. So they ain't like Levi. Jesus came through. Jesus said, hey, I'm going to go here and break bread with him. So he's sitting in there with Levi and all the other people. And the people was like, Jesus, what are you in there with them for? These people robbing us. They taking our money. They treating us like this, blah, blah, blah. He said, hey, sick people need a hospital. These people need me, okay? But to walk with Christ, Matthew couldn't stay robbing people and treating them bad. He changed his name to Matthew. He changed who he was, and then he walked with Jesus, right? So what I'm trying to say is, you can be who you are, but just because you want to be who you are, don't mean that stuff is changes for your circumstance, right? I was 22 years old. I sold drugs. I made a lot of money, but that don't make selling drugs a good thing. It just means I did what I wanted to do, and were there some positive benefits of it? Yes. What I look like telling some kid, you know what, if you need some money, bro, the one out here on the block like I did it, then you get your rest of your money later, right? You can't act like something bad is good. You can't act like something unnormal is normal. Now, you can say that a person can do what they want to do and have a right to do what they want to do. Stop trying to normalize it, right? We can't normalize, because I'm gonna tell you the truth, right? I remember before I met my wife, this girl, she stayed with me. I had another extra room, and her and I are the best of friends. We became really good friends, still good friends now. And so I said to her, you dated this person in school, this person in school, this person in school. How in the devil did you get to a point where you throwing rocks at dudes, right? She laughed at me. She laughed, right? So she goes, well, I had an experience with a woman before I had sex with a guy. So then she goes, and she was like 12 or 13 years old. And then she goes to name teachers that were messing with girls in school. So here's the deal. A lot of times when our kids are playing in the back, you worried about the little boy playing with your daughter because you don't want your daughter pregnant. But most women and most mothers ain't thinking about their daughter at 11 playing with a girlfriend who got a gay sister, or they look at all of that stuff on television and have a curiosity about it and start playing with. Now they like the feeling of it, and now your daughter at 15, she come out of the closet and either she walk around like a dude or she just been messing with girls since she was 11 years old, and that's all she knows. She didn't even give her mind a chance to go out here and date to see what she really like. Now it's about a feeling, right? Do I believe that some people are like that? I got a cousin that I knew he was gay when we were kids. You know what I'm saying? But most people are not like that. Yeah, most people aren't like that. And I just say that, if in sin, the more you do something, the more that you want, right? You have sex, you want to have sex again. You have sex with two people, now you want to have an orgy. Somebody do this to you, now you want them to do that to you. You know what I mean? It's never enough. It's the feeling that feels good. And if you're young and somebody does something like that to you and you ain't never experienced, you're going to want that feeling again. And now you're stuck right there.
It's sort of like the saying that sin takes you further than you want to go and keeps you longer than you want to stay. So you start out with one thing, but the flesh is insatiable. You cannot satisfy the flesh.
You can't satisfy it.
You cannot satisfy.
And so the problem with people that are talking about the Bible, sometimes they don't really even understand the Bible themselves. So when they're trying to justify something using the Bible, they're losing something in the spirit that really to help them to really understand it. Go ahead, Vanessa.
Right.
Vanessa was speaking.
No, that was an accident.
Well, go ahead.
But it goes to say that the movie, the show about the Black church was valuable in teaching us about our history. But again, it goes to how we started out the show about the agenda behind certain things that we do. We don't understand that people sometimes are pushing an agenda, which brings me to, not only did I watch the Black Church, I also watched, I was able to go to the movie to see Judas and the Black Messiah.
Oh,
And oh my God, when I say that was awesome. Did anybody on the line get a chance to see that?
Yes.
You saw it, Billy?
Yeah, we started.
What did you think of that?
I thought it was an excellent movie. I had never heard of what's his name? Um, I had
Oh,
never heard.
right.
Yeah,
The star of the, I forgot his name.
yeah.
Uh,
But the character that he played, I had never heard of.
right.
Right.
Neither have I.
was it
So,
Barabbas? Who he
What?
played?
right.
Who?
Barabbas? Was it him? Who he played?
No. It was about like the Black Panther
Black Panther
movement
Party.
and an instrumental character that started the idea of feeding the young children, starting the lunch programs before the government even had them, and how the CIA tracked them.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't about the CIA primarily. It was about the CIA using a Black person to track.
Yeah.
And that goes to the point of what we've been talking about all day about how it doesn't seem like we can come together. It doesn't seem like we can be on one accord or make progress together as Black people. And I was saying it's bigger than us. There's a government coding behind what we do to prevent us from progressing and unifying. And this person was a mole. It was like Jesus and Judas, really. That's
Okay.
why it was called Judas and the Black Messiah,
Right.
because you couldn't tell the difference from who was a real Black Panther, really.
That's true. And the things that he did as Judas, you would think that he wouldn't have done those things as if he wasn't really a Black Panther member. You know.
Right. But you could tell he was torn because he didn't want to go against his people, but the government held things over him, like
Right.
either it's your life or their life. Like he hot wired a car, so they said he was going to get 7 years or some crazy amount of years if he did not do this. And he thought maybe it was an in and out deal where he could just sell out a little bit, get a couple of dollars and leave, but they owned his soul.
Mm.
They owned his soul and he could never get out. So it was a phenomenal movie, and it just plays on how we deal with each other, and it goes beyond why can't we just get along? Why can't we agree? Why are we like crabs in a barrel? Behind the scene things are. Hi, Clayton. How are you doing?
Hey, how you doing?
You got a chance to see Judas and the Black Messiah. If you have a minute, if you want to jump in as well.
Well,
What did you think about it?
I thought it was an excellent movie. I thought it made me mad. And any movie that can move me emotionally, and not a lot of movies can do that. I thought it was well acted. I thought it was very successful. That more movies need to be done like this. I would definitely go see if they had a part 2. But I learned something in the movie. I've learned how crooked the FBI can put people behind our lines to spy on ourselves. So it was a very powerful movie.
I learned something as well because I grew up watching Elliot Ness and cowboy movies and war movies, and I never knew behind the scenes that all of those movements about promoting the cowboy as the white hero of the West to deflect from land being taken away from African Americans. I didn't know about Elliot Ness and how the CIA was behind Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, saying they were the #1 threat to America. See, as a child, I just thought they were just white heroes. John Wayne, I grew up on all of that, Vietnam movies, only to get on this side to see how there's an agenda behind every story. So I learned a lot.
Every time I see the movie Malcolm X, right, And it's not even like I haven't seen it before. It hurts me more to think that the people that he walked with killed him.
Mm.
That I
But if
think
you
that
see Judas and the Black Messiah, that's going to make you even madder.
I don't want to see
Yeah,
it now.
it's gonna
You
make
say
you
you don't want to
mad.
see
I
it.
don't want to see it now.
But you
I
need
tell
You
you
got
what,
to see it. You got.
you need to
a
see
movie.
it. Go ahead.
Go
No,
ahead,
I was
sir.
going to say a movie that really upset me like that was Mississippi Burning.
Mm.
Oh my
That yeah,
goodness.
that one too.
Mississippi Burning was it was. I was pissed. I was a little pissed where I was but it really upset me to see that movie.
I'm gonna
A
tell
lot of
you, like it, when every I ain't gonna say just at Black History time, but you think about being in school, right, and everything they teach you about American history. Sadly, at most of the stuff I know about Black history, I learned after high school. I
Right.
learned, and you know what? And the sad part about it, you know what made me want to learn? Tom Joyner. I used to listen to Tom Joyner, and he was always talking about all these Black inventors. And I'm like,
Wow.
we did all the stuff, and that made me want to go and research more, like different things that Black people invented. I had no idea. I was in my 30s before I even know what Juneteenth was, and
Mm.
it was in my early 30s. And I had a friend that went to a HBCU, and then she was talking about Juneteenth, and I asked her what it was. I never even knew it was a thing. How does something that significant not get taught to us when we're in school? How
well,
how the three women that made the contributions to NASA that the women in Hidden Figures
Right,
did?
right.
How in the world was that not taught to us in school? That's crazy.
But the thing about African American history, they don't want us to learn it. And that's
Right,
why it's not taught in the schools, because they don't want you to know that we did something in this country besides being slaves. Well, they want you to know that.
right,
Yeah,
right,
we in 1619, the first slaves were brought to this country. Well, what were they doing before?
right,
Okay, but they don't want to talk about it. And so it's very important that you learn about slavery because that's where they want to keep your mind.
right.
Okay?
Yeah, Snoop
And,
Dogg, people got on Snoop Dogg for saying he doesn't want to hear another blankety blank movie or word about a slave because that uh, just solidifies their mind of white supremacy, that they will always be supreme over us, and remember that we ruled over you as your master. And I'm almost hesitant to even keep using the word slave. I'm sick of using the word slave. You kidnapped us. You
mm-hmm.
kidnapped a bunch of people, and you were a bunch of uncouth heathens at that time, the people that did the kidnapping. So when we use the word slaves and master, that just beefs up their ego of being superior.
Yeah, and
yeah,
then they and the stuff that really make them look bad, like the fact that the white masters was um sleeping with the Mandingo black men in front of their wives as a way to emasculate them and stuff like that. So they ain't gonna talk about the stuff that really that they did, or even when it comes to the Native Americans, you don't really paint that picture of how truly evil, how and I'm gonna tell you, it's like what really made me think about what I really thought about one day. It was like when you talk about Native American people, you really can't even identify a true Native American, right? Because the whole race of them have been killed off. Now you do have some reservations out in Arizona and stuff like that, and out there in that region, right? But for the most part, think about when you go out to dinner. Go to any restaurant you want to go to. You see black families, white families, you see Asian families, you see Spanish families, right? They killed off white people, killed the Indians so bad that you can't even identify them, and then had the nerve to make a love story out of Pocahontas. Tell me the kind of foolishness that is.
But then you talk about, but Cheryl, it goes back to what you said too about accountability and responsibility. That once you know and you learn, we have got to tell the story to our younger people so
Mm-hmm.
they can understand. Because I grew up in Washington D.C. and my father taught history, so here We had places like the DC Black Rep. I saw a play that said 1001 Black Inventions.
Uh-huh.
Blew me away because to know that what we have done. So my father, so do you tell? And we're still talking about that now with the children that we have, but we were like you said, we were taken by force.
Mm-hmm.
And we
Right.
and I tell the children now, we didn't start. History kind of makes it like our race just automatically appeared at slavery. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
That we were, to understand that story, but to tell that story.
Right. That just like we had the young teenager on a few minutes ago. Uh, she asked, "What is the KKK?" And she's white. So, but we assume that people know these stories. We have to tell the true history to the young people so that they're mind, because they are the next leaders. And we can't keep playing the same narrative. We were slaves and our history started as slaves. That's nonsense.
No.
That's not, this country's these people overtook this country only a couple of hundred years ago. You were talking about thousands of years of history before.
I tell you what, this really goes back to not just us being slaves, but the slavery times where it was almost a punishment to educate the Negro. So they executed a lot of our educators back then. So that's the reason why a lot of us use information as far as our history and our culture, as far as our accomplishments, was not taught to us in school. And to me, I think it harkens back to those days that the white man did not want us to be educated. We had to seek our education. We had to learn about our culture. A lot of stuff, like you said, I learned a lot about Black history after I left high school.
Right.
All I knew about Jim and see John Run and see Susan. So, I learned about astronauts. I learned about John Glenn.
Right.
But I didn't learn about the lady who was in Kitchen Figure. I didn't know about her. She was the reason why the Apollo program occurred.
Yeah. And they didn't even want her to have a voice. And think about it, they couldn't have even got the shuttle to the moon without her.
Right.
They couldn't.
But check this out.
About it through a movie.
Right. And I just learned about that at my age. But check this out. What Black people or African Americans might want to remind themselves of, that we are intentionally prohibited from being educated, is because when we were kidnapped, we were educated already. And people assume that because we did not speak English, we were illiterate. That is not so. We were not illiterate. We were just not literate in the English language.
We were commodity.
So we had an advantage because we were literate in different languages, where we were actually interpreters to the Americas before this institution of kidnapping people and bringing them to the Americas.
But they had some help though, Cheryl. I mean, listen. OJ played the perfect part in Roots because he was one of the jokers that was helping them get the slaves on the ship.
Right. Well, absolutely. I'm saying we were traders. Africans were traders before people were kidnapped and brought to the Americas. I'm saying that Africans came to the Americas first, way before Christopher Columbus, because that's nonsense that Christopher Columbus discovered America.
Say that again.
Yeah, that's nonsense. Africans were coming to Americas as interpreters and traders centuries before the people from Europe discovered that they wanted to come over here. Africans were the interpreters for the Europeans that came over here to try to overthrow the Americas. So we really don't know that our history, and I'm we're going to delve into this because our session is a little bit over, but I really have enjoyed all the participants, and we're going to meet back here at 2:00 on Saturdays for TEALITY is our twist on reality. And boy, it's a lot to talk about, and thank you all for joining. If nobody has input, does anybody want to have a final word before we leave?
Well, I want to have a final word, and I can really say that we were educated because the Black people invented a lot of stuff in this world. They still trying to steal our culture. George Washington Carver was one of the most intelligent people of all time. Look how many items products that he made from peanuts.
Right.
So, but I'm gonna tell you, I really enjoyed this conversation. Even though I'm at work, I know I look like I'm looking around. It's just that I'm at work.
Yeah.
Enjoyed you going in on the conversation.
Thank you so much. And you all have a blessed Saturday, and we'll meet back here at 2:00 next Saturday.
All righty.
All right.
All right. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye.